SEC versus Big Ten podcast. This is Ron from Oakland, live in the. It's dangerous time. It's that Mercury retrograde time of the year here in August. So a lot of communication and technical difficulties during this time of the year for some people, and I happen to fall into it today. Decided to push off the podcast a few times of who finishes in the top three in both divisions and how they finish in the top three. So we're going to dive into it real quick. It's time to put up or shut up. 2022 is over. 2022 is over. Like talking season no more. It's time to put up. It's time to talk about who are the big dogs today. So yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. Now, for these two programs, it's time to ascend and improve 2022 ain't no fluke. We're starting off with Auburn, Auburn, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Mississippi State. The number 4 seed so far has 3 SEC wins. That's how competitive it is. They have a pretty weak non-conference schedule. They opened the season against Mercer, Tulane, Georgia Tech. Now, the average fool might believe they played 10 SEC games this year because Tulane and Georgia Tech are originally SEC members, but no. And surprisingly enough, Ole Miss has 4 road games during the conference play, and they're on the road to Tulane, which is pretty strange. In week 2 in September, you want to be playing in Louisiana in G5 program stage. Now that team is pretty good. Michael Pratt is a pretty good quarterback, maybe the best quarterback in G5. Tulane possibly might be the best program in the G5 this year. Now that most of those power G5 programs are now in Big 12, so it's going to be interesting. But the problem with Ole Miss this year is they're not going to be able to be prepared for SEC play when you're opening up against an FCS opponent in Mercer. And the following week, you're coming where? You're going on the road to Tulane, a G5 program, and then you're back at home for Georgia Tech, going to ACC. You're going from trash to trash to trash in competition. You wonder why some of these teams can't do it. This is what Texas A&M used to do all the time. They play 4 trash games. They get prepared for SEC play with 6-0, and then they start getting smacked around by Alabama somewhere. I see the same here because not only do I see Ole Miss starting on 3-0, I see them possibly losing the next 3 games because they go on the road to Alabama week 4 in September, and week 5 they're back at home against LSU. Loss. Now it gets tricky because the following week, the first weekend of October, the sweet month of October, that's when you know SEC season is on play and display all day long, baby. Arkansas I have finishing 5th. And the reason why I have them finishing 5th is somehow they lose to Mississippi and Ole Miss. It's not too late for them. I feel like they might be able to pull this game off. K. Jefferson has to be healthy. Rocket Sanders have to be healthy. Defense has to be healthy. Offensive line has to be healthy. They're strong. They lose these games. I'm kind of seeing it where you got Ole Miss in panic freight right now. They're 3-2, 0-2 SEC play. They're at home after the embarrassing loss at home the week prior. They beat Arkansas at home. And it gets weird because you paid attention to the previous episodes, you have seen it last. Although Auburn's finishing dead last in the SEC West, I have them beating Ole Miss. Ole Miss bye. Ole Miss comes out of bye. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. We've been trying to work on this for a good little minute, and it's going in and out. The signals out here, it's what it is. So excuse us. We're going to get better at this as we keep going. So you start off 3-0. You lose your first 2 SEC games. Home game, you somehow pull out a miraculous win against a very good Arkansas team. Sam Pittman is a very good head coach. This is a very equal game in all measurements. But the drama is where I'm here for, baby. I'm looking at chaos coming to you live at a screen near you. Listen, they go into a bye right after this game, October 7th. They go into their October 14th. They're preparing. They go on the road to Auburn afterwards after they beat Arkansas. So you're telling me they're going to beat Arkansas, but they're going to lose to Auburn after the. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. On the road, there's going to be a lot of emotions here. Auburn fans probably wanted Lane Kiffin. They have Hugh Freeze. They're playing against Hugh Freeze's old team that fired him. He's going to be fired up. The players for Auburn is going to be fired up. This might be the best game of the season you see Auburn play. Luckily for Auburn, they play Vanderbilt as well as Ole Miss. So, yes, they lose to Auburn. They go down 1-3. How are they finished third, you ask? Easy. Because they win the next two games. They got two home games coming up. They host Vanderbilt on October 28th. Good game there. I believe that Ole Miss game October 21st. October 20th in prime time. CBS loves the drama. Last year covering the SEC, they want to cover all that drama because the Hugh Freeze stink from 2016 and 17 and all that foolishness that was going down, it came to a big headbutt. So that's a prime time game they lose on the road. Playing on the SEC in the road is really hard to do. 2006 Florida Gators won a national championship, lost to the Auburn Tigers on the road. You're going to lose on the road in the SEC no matter how sorry or good that team is. Many people found out last year, according to how the schedule played out. So, Vanderbilt's the following week. I'm calculating it as a win, but it's not going to be an easy win. If you all remember last year, Vanderbilt had Ole Miss on choke road. Looked like a good Monday night classic, Monday night Raw. You know, I'm going back to Monday night Shawn Michaels and DX, you know, Undertaker and all those guys. You know, where you might have a championship fight on Monday Night Raw, and what happens? There's some, excuse the technical difficulties, some interference comes in, and guess what? Somehow they win the fight. That's what I'm going with Vanderbilt. Somehow they're going to lose the fight. They're going to whoop some ass in that game, but you're going to come back looking like, how did Vanderbilt actually lose that? But a year later, we don't care. We don't remember that Vanderbilt almost won 4 SEC games last year, but they only won 2. They beat Kentucky and Florida. Not getting Vanderbilt to win this one. And then it gets funnier to me because following week they play another shitty-ass team called Texas A&M. Hello, Texas A&M. By then, is Jimbo Fisher still the head coach? You got to be asking yourself. By then, you got to wonder, how many times has Jimbo Fisher beaten Lane Kiffin as a head coach battle one-on-one? Hasn't happened, folks. 2020 happened. Texas A&M avoided. I'm here to tell you right now. Ole Miss scares Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher wants none of that big dick energy in his throat. He doesn't want to juggle none of that. None of that. He wants to prepare his team for Alabama because he knows, but he doesn't want to prepare for a team that the players feel like they're better than, but don't understand that they're not better as a team than them. You're better talented, but you're not a better team. That's a challenge. And at this schedule, as I have Ole Miss beating Arkansas, edging them out, I have them beating Mississippi State to close the season in the Egg Bowl. That's the reason why they're sitting fat, folks. Those are 2 wins right there. And I said Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. They win all the non-conference games, and they finished season 8-4. That's all we're talking about right here, 8-4 season. Because after Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, they play on the road to Georgia. They're the only team other than Auburn that plays LSU, Alabama, and Georgia all in the same season. That's going to wear and tear you. And that's where it gets a little scary because if you have any injuries in this time, that Arkansas-Mississippi State game kind of changes momentum depend on your health. All the off-season drama, what you've been doing during the off-season. It's been interesting. A lot of quarterbacks added into the QB room, but Dart is still the starter. During the spring, it was stated by Lane Kiffin there was no quarterback competition. The quarterback competition was only for number 2 and number. I haven't said a prayer to Annabelle in a while, and I think she's in the house right now. Annabelle the doll. Haven't seen her in a minute. Haven't talked to her in a minute. Feel like she's trying to get my attention. Everything just going. Stuff is flying off the wall. Technical difficulties. There's a ghost here in Oakland, California, and the child of the devil and is after my soul right now. So if I'm not able to post this, you know what happened. This will be evident somehow. Hopefully it gets recorded. But no, seriously, the depth of Ole Miss, where would they be in these games? If you're losing to Auburn, you're losing to LSU, you're losing to Alabama and Georgia, but you're beating Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and the two toss-ups are really Arkansas and Mississippi, because Mississippi State 1-2-3, check 1-2-3. No recording. Check it 1-2-3. Listen, Mississippi State can finish third in the SEC West. Don't play around with them. That's a very veteran team. Mike Leach might not be around, but his spirit's going to be around, and that team could possibly win some games they shouldn't win. It could be a lot of weird stuff. We always say the first year. After that, your spirit's dead because they're going to be worshiping you too hard, and you're not going to be able to do shit. The ghost of Christmas is past. 8-4, folks. 8-4. And that's really what – there's no separation between who's third and who's fourth, and who's fifth and who's sixth, who's seventh. Separation between Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Alabama is one game, and that's just Ole Miss winning that game. So if Arkansas turns out beating Mississippi State and Ole Miss, why not? There's all kind of possibilities here. And I'm giving Ole Miss the slight edge because I like Lane Kiffin. I like what he's building. I think that defense is going to be just as good. I think they have more top-tier talent all around on the board. The transfer portal is being – I think the transfer portal is being really used really well right now. And it's shown me improvement time. Let's see what happens. And we're not going to dive too long into this because we want to get right into the LSU, baby. And LSU has a floor of possibly losing a lot of games or going undefeated. It just depends because they have a lot of new faces on this team. They overachieved last year. They came together as a team right before the Florida game. And getting your ass whooped by Florida State and Tennessee right before a Florida game, that's all the momentum you need because you're saying you can't lose to Florida. This year, they don't have that. If you notice LSU for the last 20 years or so, it seems like their team just builds momentum heading into that Florida game, which is maybe a game or two right before Alabama. They kind of peak going into that Alabama game. And usually the best time to play Alabama is right after they play. The best time to play LSU is right after they play Alabama. And that's what the Florida Gators have this year, but they're on the road. So we're going to see the last year of division play in SEC 2023. And the LSU Tigers open up the season Sunday night, September 3rd, live in Orlando, Florida, against the Florida State Seminoles, who I like to tag Tallahassee State, Cocaine Mike Norvell. I wish I pull up the graphic of Cocaine Mike in his uniform. Looked like he was sniffing with the cornrows. But we're going to digress. We're not going to talk too much trash about the G5 program with a 40% blue chip rate ratio. We're not going to talk too much and dive into that. But what I would say is when I was talking to the groups and talking to these guys, there was Florida State fans, LSU fans last year. LSU fans thought I was being a hater, but I said, hey, you're not winning this game this year. It's not for you this year. I hope you play well, but it's going to be really difficult for you to win this game, and I don't think you're going to do it. And there was multiple reasons why. The number one reason why is Florida State played week 0. Week 0, they played a game. They had a warm-up to get all their everything out of the way. That week, that first game of the season, you're making so many mistakes. The biggest improvement in the season is from your first game to your second game. LSU was playing their first game, or Florida State was playing their second game. That was advantage number 1. Number 2, LSU was year number 3 under their coach in the program. LSU was year 1 under Brian Kelly. Big advantage. That's the second advantage. That's 2 huge advantages. And the biggest game of the year that Jared Verse had for Florida State was against 2 true freshmen making their first starts at offensive tackles on both sides of the ball for LSU. So their left and right tackle were both true freshmen. Highly touted, highly ranked, very talented. But they're true freshmen playing their first game against a veteran-led defense in a neutral field in New Orleans. Not what you think you should be playing. That's a huge advantage. Then not only Brian Kelly year 1, but he's got a new quarterback from the Pac-12 playing because he's pretty mobile and needed the mobility because there's no way a pocket passer is expected to sit behind 2 true freshmen playing offensive tackle. That is ridiculous. That's like asking Tom Brady to sit behind a rookie offensive line against the New York Giants defensive line. You don't do that. That's suicide. The best player on LSU injured his knee on the first series of the game. Momentum. Wide receivers they don't know what they're doing. They came from a different system. We don't know what Brian Kelly wants. They don't know the expectations. There's no chemistry. All these advantages. And Florida State only won by 1. They were winning by almost 30. They could have won by 30 if they maintained that momentum. LSU showed fight in that game. They showed they weren't going to lose, but they almost won the game. That's scary for Florida State if I'm looking at this game. You got to cover this game because everybody's looking at Florida State as a preseason top 10 team, a playoff contender. And I'm saying no. I'm saying that hype is very dangerous. That's rat poison. Right now, Florida State, Mike Norvell, that program, the fan base, the organization, the administration, the school, the fans, everybody, they're eating rat poison right now. That rat poison is slow. Doesn't just immediately kill you. You see, each game is like a digestion mode. And as you digest the rat poison, it just comes at you. This game 1. Here's another aspect that LSU didn't have last year. They had a true freshman phenom by the name of Harold Perkins, who might have been the best player in college football last year. Special talent. All-pro NFL level talent if he stays consistent and healthy. A big recruiting win for Brian Kelly over Billy Napier. Biggest recruiting win for Brian Kelly since he's been to LSU. Huge win. Because that player right there, that 5-star linebacker, is the difference between LSU going to the SEC championship or going 6-6 last year. Without him, I don't know if Florida loses because he kept Anthony Richardson in check. I don't know if Bryce Young could probably complete more passes because he was there putting pressure on Bryce Young. Guy is all over the field. He's uber fast, talented, long, rangy, athletic, can play the pass, play the rushing lanes. You go into this game with the NFL mindset of Matt House, who was linebackers coach at Kansas City Chiefs for the last few years before he was defensive coordinator at Kentucky under Mark Stoops, who's also a prevailing, awesome defensive mind. Looking at this game and saying, let's just play it up. Let's put pressure on these Florida State wide receivers. Let's see if they can get off the line of scrimmage. Can they get breakaway? Can they do the technical things? And let's put pressure and let's put it on this quarterback. Let's not allow him to sit back. Let's just contain the edge on him and rush up the middle. He's small. Let's see if he can see over us. Let's put a spy on him. And if you're putting Harold Perkins over Jordan Travis, I don't think Jordan Travis is going to be as effective in this game. That's a big deal. So LSU opens this game up, and this is the big time because you win this game, you have a lot of momentum because the schedule sets up perfectly for LSU. They come back home in week 2 after whooping Florida State by 2 touchdowns or more, and they have Grambling State, an in-state gift for a warm-up game. They played another G5 program last year or FCS program, I can't remember, and those games help a lot. It's going to help their depth because they're playing a lot of incoming transfers and freshmen. This is going to be a nice warm up game to get ready and go into the next and to the next game starts SEC play because they play their next 2 non-conference games in the middle of SEC play. So they're doing this a little differently. Instead of playing Florida before Alabama, they're playing Army. You heard? Before, they used to play Ole Miss in Florida before Alabama. Now we're playing at Mississippi State in week 3. That's a game. If it was Mike Leach, I'd say, oof. But it's not Mike Leach. So we'll see how that could be an L. Depending on what universe we're in by the time we see the Florida State game. What multiverse universe are we in? Or what, are we in Marvel? Are we in DC? Or where are we? Are we in SEC land? Or are we back in Brian Kelly's world? Because Brian Kelly lost his game last year. He lost against Tennessee, lost against A&M, and he lost against Florida State. And no, did he lose to Mississippi State? I don't know. I can't remember that. I think he might have pulled that game off. Looked like he might have pulled that game off. Excuse me. I don't remember losing that many games. I had to think about it. That's a lot of games to lose. Yeah, they probably pulled off from Mississippi State. But they can lose to Mississippi State. It's some road game this year. They had Mississippi State at home last year. It was a great game. Very challenging. Very veteran-laden team. Defensive staff is tremendous there. So that game is a slight toss-up, and it's really building your confidence if you win this game, which I intend LSU to do. So they win this game, and now they come back home, and they have Arkansas, healthy Arkansas. And this Arkansas game, now they're battle-tested, and they're saying, bring it on, Arkansas. So I have them winning this game against Arkansas. And honestly, other than Alabama, they should relatively handle the rest of the schedule relatively easily. Mississippi State on the road, Arkansas at home, on the road against Ole Miss. You win that, you beat them. You have to. Can't let Lane Kiffin beat you in year 2. You can't say last year was a fluke. You know, it's really going to be challenging for what LSU is going to be able to do. Because right now, that's not an easy streak right here. You're talking about Arkansas, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and then on the road, Ole Miss in September. So if you played 3 SEC games in Florida State in the month of September, that is brutal. Your championship battle tested right now. And that's why the SEC always whoops ass, because week in and week out, we have to prepare. Your depth has to prepare. Your second team becomes your first team. Your third team becomes your second team when you have injuries, and they have to perform. And that's where LSU's schedule sets up a little differently this year rather than last year, where they were discovering who was on the team last year. Now they have a team. That team has to be established or running from the gate open. Florida State all the way down, because you have these road games. You have 2 road games and a neutral site game in September. Your first game in October is a road game in Missouri. Should be food. Brian Kelly should be food, but sometimes Brian Kelly loses games like against A&M that he has no business losing. So it's kind of like show me type of year. It's time to put up or shut up, Brian Kelly. Last year is over. Doesn't matter about it. You didn't win the SEC, so there's nothing to talk about last year. Now, you're looking at 6-0. You're ranked in the top 5. You're ranked in the top 5 because The win against Florida State, you're a top 10 team. When you beat Florida State, you're in the top 5 now. And you might be number 1 in the country possibly by this time. Top 3. You got Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, a bunch of undefeated teams right now. Penn State possibly is undefeated. Maybe Kentucky's undefeated. Maybe Florida's undefeated. A lot of undefeated teams right now. Clemson is possibly undefeated because they have the September 23rd game home against Florida State. A lot of things going down. So there's a lot of motivation for LSU to go inside that Missouri game at night, possibly in October early, because they come back home and they're closing it before. They're saying, let's peek into the bye. And this is where we used to have to play them. We're no longer playing them here. Now it's Auburn. Auburn at home. Hugh Freeze going into the no. I'm not getting Hugh Freeze a shot. Auburn doesn't have the talent or the team established for that kind of win to go into the bio. You don't do that in year 1. Maybe year 3. The next time you come back into LSU is going to be year 3. Maybe by then you have a squad. You should have a squad. You should have a quarterback established. Counting that as a win. So now you're 7-0. At worst, 7-1. I mean, because LSU does lose. Maybe you lose against Ole Miss. But I don't have you losing Ole Miss right now. That's the point. That's where I'm looking at. I'm looking at the talent. I'm looking at how you're playing, the schedule, how's it set up, what's returning, what are the coaches, what's their development record, how likely are you to play freshmen and then perform. LSU playing true freshmen last year. The only team that played freshmen as often as LSU last year was Florida. It was awesome to see. They had a tight end freshman, Hall of Fame Jason Taylor's son, playing 2 freshman top tackles, a linebacker. So they're recruiting. Let's see how the recruiting goes, because you go into there, you're going 3-0 before the bye and on non-conference games, and you're 5-0 in SEC play. You knocked off Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Auburn. You knocked off Grambling State, Army, Florida State. Now, when you're playing Army, you're able to rest your players. You're able to hide your playbook because you got a specific playbook for the next 2 weeks after your bye. Because this is the home stretch. The next 4 games is everything. And that's only 1 road game. And you finish November home. Big time games here. Big time games for a big time program. This is what makes championship. This is the road to the championship. Listen, man. You go into the bye, you come out of that bye, you're on the road against Alabama. And this time you're not feeling anything about the past. You know why? Because Brian Kelly is 1-0 in the SEC against Nick Saban. So the players are feeling the swagger already. They're feeling grinding kills right now. They're confident. They stay healthy. The wide receivers intact. Jaden Daniels still balling. Now, the thing about what I have to see what's going on with LSU is, do they develop a running game by now? And who are their top 2 running backs? That is the key to being 12-0, 11-1, or possibly losing to Alabama, Florida, Florida State, and Ole Miss, possibly Texas A&M. You're talking about going 8-4, 7-5 at worst case scenario. That's the difference. Where is the running game? This year, the past game was great, but where is the running game? Because that's what it's going to take on the road when you play these games, because Alabama's going to play that bully ball this year. They're no longer going to play softball anymore. So if it's no longer softball, it's football. It's Alabama ball, bully ball. Now, I spoke about it before, prior. We're going to cover in the next side, but right now, as of now, LSU should win the following game, even if they lose their first game on the road to Alabama, because the best time to play LSU historically, going back to Les Miles years, is the week right after Alabama game, because that game means so much that it's like, oh, That's how they look after the game, no matter win or lose. So they come home. It's November. Louisiana's not that hot anymore. And anytime they host Alabama, Florida at home in late October, November, it's a night game. Especially if Florida's winning more than if they win their share of games, which I didn't call them out in the bottom 7 yet. So possibly they could finish third, possibly. So had Tennessee finishing fourth this year. Joe Milton's that big of a drop off at quarterback, in my opinion, for them. Florida game is going to be a toss-up, really. It's going to be a toss-up for them. They're at home, so they have the edge. I'm giving them the edge. They deserve the edge. They won inside the Gainesville last year, so they have that edge. Now you're talking about closing the season strong because last year still sticks with you that you lost the last game of the season heading into the SEC championship game. And that was on the road against Texas A&M. We're not going to talk about Georgia State. We're not going to talk about the Georgia State Panthers. That's food. Tiger sheet Panthers. Anytime you see a tiger, a Bengal tiger and a panther, you see anything. Bengal tigers are about to eat. Shh. About to watch a panther get eaten. That's how it goes. The Aggies, like I told you, I don't have them winning but 2 games. That's against South Carolina and Auburn. Those are the only 2 games I have them winning. I have them losing this game. So, folks, that's what we're talking about here. It was a great show. We're dived into LSU possibly going 11-1, but finishing second in the SEC. You know what that sounds like? Depending on what happens in the championship game, LSU could sneak into the playoffs under these circumstances. We're going to dive more into that when we talk about Alabama and whoever finishes first in the SEC East. Thank you for a great show. Thank you for everything. We're going to dive into who finishes second and third next in the SEC East. But from here in Oakland, California, Ron from Oakland here, signing out, saying goodbye, and have a great one. Thank you so much.